content here. Welcome, everyone. I prepared some content here. It's focusing on the AI governance use case for Tehama. And before I launch into that in detail, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Paul Vallee. For many of the people in the room, this is the first time we meet. I would love to get to know each and every one of you personally, but to introduce myself, my entire professional passion has been in data and digital governance. And as part of that work, I have been a founding member of the Digital Governance Council of Canada. At the Digital Governance Council of Canada, I was involved in writing our third-party data standard. Our ethical AI standard is currently in revision, and I'm part of the drafting committee for that as well. I'm also a senior fellow with the Center for International Governance Innovation, and this product was originally built in a business called Pythian, where we were supporting about 300 privileged users working from all over the world to access some very sensitive environments. I have a couple of things that I'm excited to share today, and I'm going to also seize the microphone to talk about our Microsoft partnership. So I have a lot of content to go through. I will be reserving a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, but if we do run out of time for Q&A, I want you to know that I'm available for each of you individually to deal with your questions, because that kind of partner engagement is key to our success. So these are the key takeaways that I would like each of you to walk away with, and I'm going to lead with the key takeaways just so that you can walk away from this meeting. If you were to leave early, you'll have this, and if you can stay all the way to the end, you'll put all this knowledge together in a way that's quite convincing. The first takeaway is that in enterprise accounts, nothing unlocks a meeting with a CIO or CISO better than talking about AI adoption or AI adoption security and compliance. CIOs and CISOs, you will find, many of them have fatigue on cybersecurity investments. And the cybersecurity sale is also challenging, not impossible by any stretch, but it's also challenging because we have to overcome two sources of resistance. The one is that the customer has already made cybersecurity investments, and we need to be perceived as complementary to all of those. But also, we might need to displace other competitors, such as, for example, we might need to displace Citrix or VMware. Now, this could be a meeting unlocker in its own right if a customer wants to displace Citrix or VMware. But if Citrix or VMware, the customer is perfectly satisfied, we have to overcome them, and that puts us into classic red ocean strategy. AI governance, on the other hand, is a new emerging burning issue, and the best thing about this burning issue is that the budget makes itself, because the customer wants to claim the anticipated productivity gains of adopting AI. Two key things to listen to in your customer base. The first one is ask your customers, do you currently permit ChatGPT or other cloud AI platforms? Especially those of you who are in the financial sector in the UK, you will hear no, you do not. And the same is true here in Canada. We do not see our major banking institutions and financial institutions adopting cloud AI as of yet. And the reason that they don't is because they are very concerned about data loss and compliance with the regulatory regime in critical infrastructure. Another key thing to listen for is we have years of data governance work ahead of us before we can confidently adopt AI. One of the challenges here is that data governance work currently has no destination. And I'll explain a little bit better about how Tehama can be used to create a destination for data governance work, so that when the work is done, it can be put to work in the enterprise, and we can move on to the next item while our data governance efforts are effectively at work. Tehama is unique in the industry because we have a silver bullet solution to permit adoption in situations such as these. It does not require any other vendors or effort in order to achieve that, and I'll explain a little bit better in a minute. Okay, any questions so far? I'm going to pause there. It's the most important slide in the entire presentation. The rest is explanations of this concept. All right, well, I'll continue. Okay, so a reminder of what Tehama does, because when we describe Tehama as a cybersecurity platform, we tend to show the forest, but we don't talk about the trees. Here's the tree. What Tehama does is it builds a fully managed data governance enclave in the cloud. We call these rooms. So those of you who've been using the platform and selling the platform, you're used to describing what the rooms are. The rooms are a data enclave in the cloud. What's the point of a data enclave? It creates a governed and secured network with only the people having access to only the data with only the systems that you permit. Okay, so it creates a perfect intersection of people, apps, and data. Now, while creating that perfect interception of people, apps, and data, we create a high integrity audit trail of all of the decisions that led to that state and create a full auditability for activities within the enclave itself. So data enclaves are a general purpose technology. You can use them for a lot of different things. You can use them, among other things, for AI governance. And I heard during the intros that we briefly engaged in, I heard several of you using this for pen testing or red team enablement, very classic use case. Privilege access management, classic use case. I'm not going to discuss those today. I'm going to focus on the AI governance use case. So, and specifically, I'm going to spend most of my time focusing on governing the adoption of public models, because this is the burning issue of the day, okay? Almost every major enterprise is currently forbidding the adoption of public models and dealing with circumvention on that file. So what is the challenge? The challenge is most of the enterprise data is not labeled. It's what's called dark data. Dark data is, some of your data is labeled, but a lot of your data you don't know if it's permitted or not permitted to use with AI. With the regulatory regime coming out of the EU AI Act and Canada, the UK, Japan, South Korea, all looking to build regimes that are compatible with the EU AI Act, what we've done is we created a situation where you could have this data and properly have the data, but you're not allowed to use AI with it without doing a lot of data governance and overall systems governance work. Now, while you're waiting to do that work, you're not comfortable adopting AI at all, even though a lot of your data is perfectly suitable for use with AI and does not have a regulatory exposure. Simultaneously, there's a lot of different categories of people that enterprises need to enable with data. A lot of enterprises would love to enable third parties with data, and especially this is important with governments. Governments would love to permit external data access to only the data that should be permitted, with only the tools that can be used to access that data. And then finally, regulations coming at us prove that apps, people, and data can't all mix. We have become, as an industry, expert in data governance, but we are just beginning the work on systems governance. Systems governance is a sister capability to data governance. And systems governance is what we need to do to adopt AI. We need to have the governance capacity to prove that our AI adoption is not subject to data loss, so governance from a cybersecurity perspective, and has been cleared of bias and other human rights dimensions. So systems governance from a training data perspective. And that means that certain data that you might properly have, you may not be able to engage AI with. And the result of that in the large enterprise right now is you can't use AI at all. That is not sustainable. So some kinds of data can't be used or can. Some can be used for some use cases, but not AI. Training require elevated data governance posture, and AI adoption for higher use cases require a highly elevated security and compliance posture that is a close cousin to privilege access management, which, as you know, is a key use case for our platform. So what do we do at Tehama? We create this perfect intersection in the data enclave, with only the people having access to only the apps that you permit, with only the data that you permit. And here's the key point, and here's the magic. The magic of the silver bullet is even if that is no data at all. How can that be right? And I just want you guys to all do some soul searching. Have you used ChatGPT? And I think most of us have used it. And when you were using ChatGPT, what sorts of things were you doing? And did you want or require to paste in internal data in order to be successful? A study at BCG in collaboration with Boston University and OpenAI measured the productivity impact of adopting ChatGPT and found that for Boston Consulting Group consultants, now remember, consultants do external advisory. So I fully acknowledge this is a best case, cherry-picked best case scenario. But in that workload, 90% of the productivity boost available from adopting ChatGPT or LLM technology was available with no internal data access whatsoever. It was improved to 42.5% or 10% more with internal access. But if you think of your larger scale telcos and your larger scale banking environments, what you see there is large teams of knowledge workers, all of whom can, let's be conservative, we can assume that they will get I mean, even if you don't think 38% is possible, one of the most conservative studies brought out 14%. Okay, great, 14%. Let's just go with the worst case scenario in a knowledge worker that anyone has ever spat out with access to LLMs. And even if you think 90% is unrealistic and you only go with 50% of your productivity boost is available without internal data, you still see a 7% productivity boost. And 7% productivity boost across a telco that employs over 10,000 people or a bank that employs over 10,000 people is a gigantic productivity boost that makes its own budget. And that's the key point. What we cost is a vanishing shadow in the face of the productivity advancements, no matter how conservative you want to be, and even if you exclude all data. So what do? You start with no data at all. So now in the enclave, you can permit not just ChatGPT, but all of the dozens of different cloud AIs that are popping up like popcorn. You've created a safe space, a container in the cloud that you govern strictly, but that you can prove to any stakeholder that no internal data is available inside it whatsoever. And now you can prove that you can't copy and paste into it. You can prove that you can't exfiltrate data from it, or you can't bring in files into it, okay? And what that means is all you really need to do to adopt these kinds of tools is do it somewhere safe. A lot of your partnership opportunities with the larger systems integrators are also surfaced as a result of this. Tools like Deloitte Cortex or Palantir or Wipro Homes, all of these tools can be installed in an enclave, but they can't be installed on a normal desktop. And so that normal desktop that has access to too much data, enterprises tend to be uncomfortable installing AI analytics tooling on those desktops because they have, with access to too much data, the regulatory freight train is coming for that work. And you know, the same is true here in Canada as it is in Europe. So these enclaves can then be thought of as highly restricted zones in the cloud. You can cover the differentiation of these enclaves, which is night and day to trying to build a solution like this with traditional systems integrated virtual desktop networks, okay? It's night and day because you can build an enclave in under an hour, and we keep the receipts and surface the receipts for all of the configuration decisions that led to the posture in the enclave. And building an enclave is the fastest way from 0 to 100 to establishing an ISO 27001 fully governed environment in the cloud. So what does it look like? To status quo, your users have access to too much data. Here in the private core systems, you have things like their email with all of the attachments that they've received in the last 7 years. Completely unlabeled, completely ungoverned, and it's a crapshoot as to whether AI could or could not be permitted on any of those files. It's not just the email, it's all the network data sources they have access to, and all of the file data sources that they have access to in technologies like SharePoint or what have you. Now, the result of that is that a lot of enterprises are saying, no, we're not going to permit AI on that environment. And the reason is because we're not comfortable with our governance posture for the data assets that you have access to. Remember that if you can trust an individual, that's fine, but you can never trust 1,000 people. 1,000 people, someone will make a mistake or there will be a bad actor. It's impossible to trust 1,000 people. So in the large enterprises, this is why AI is currently being forbidden. What we do then instead is you build an enclave in the cloud. It takes you 45 minutes. You invite your users into it. Inside the enclave in the cloud, none of these private systems are available, none of them. The net upshot of that is that the users can use the desktop in the cloud to access ChatGPT and all of the emerging models that come out. You know, there's new models coming out every week. This is incredibly important for software engineering, for example. Software engineering teams that are currently being forbidden from using AI are quitting. And your banks and government and telco customers know that, and they're under huge pressure to somehow enable those software engineering teams to do their work outside of their compliance bubble in a governed and approved way. So this is an obvious example of the kinds of emerging models. I believe there are over a dozen now market-leading software engineering support models covering everything from agile development workflow to test case development to actual code completion. So those are really obvious use case. At that point, though, key point here, the data governance journey can begin. And this is the other major input, which is data governance functions right now in the larger enterprise have nowhere to put governed data that lets the user know that they can or can't use it. So the key thing here is your users have access to too much data still. Let's imagine that you govern some data asset. Perhaps you've governed it to decide you've cleared it of bias, you've cleared it of human rights dimensions, you've cleared it for user consent, and you've done the work that your regulatory regime or your CIO's guidance forces you to do. Now what? You still can't install Deloitte Cortex on this. You still can't permit ChatGPT here because the user inevitably will not keep track of what data is and isn't permitted. The alternative is to create a bright, hard line. Integrate the data asset into the enclave only and enable the tool on the enclave only. And this is the power of a platform that permits both systems and data governance to occur, okay? Because now the user knows they can't use AI on this desktop. They go to their AI enablement desktop and they have access to the cloud models, the internal tools on the desktop, and all of the data that is permitted. So now the data governance function has a thing to do with the data assets once they are permitted to be used with AI. So this is a quick description of the workflow. It's a slide that would be available to you along with all of these slides in the event that you can identify an opportunity. Here's a quick solution sheet. And I want to just very, very quickly gloss over, especially since I know that there are Europeans in the audience, other opportunities for AI, for Tehama and AI governance in EU AI Act high-risk workloads. So in high-risk workloads, Moses saying, please don't kill anybody is never going to be enough, okay? So in high-risk workloads, a policy that says you can permit AI, but please don't leak any private data and anonymize your prompts and capture information for our records. This is fine for only the easiest workloads, okay? The reality is that building a turnkey solution to govern that is very challenging, and CIOs want to be able to say, all of our AI adoption is limited to data our governance capacity has decided is appropriate, okay? I can hold my users accountable if they misbehave. That's the foundational precept of governance, is having an accountability function, because policy without governance is just policy. It's not a governed policy. It's like Moses saying, please don't kill anybody, into a society that has no police or judiciary or prison apparatus. It's just asking people to be nice. That is not suitable for the large enterprise, and it's certainly not suitable for regulated workloads in high-risk workloads. So I covered the public and private models with the private data sets well. High-risk AI has extra requirements. You need to demonstrate human at the helm. So you have to demonstrate your human oversight capacity. And high-risk AI must be done in a known and adequate cybersecurity posture, which is very difficult for some enterprises to demonstrate that the cybersecurity posture is appropriate for the use of high-risk AI. Finally, high-risk AI requires you, under the EU AI Act, to have a reasonably foreseeable misuse risk management system. So before you can be permitted to adopt AI to do things like biometrics or critical infrastructure or government infrastructure or anything involving border security or the judiciary, you need to be able to demonstrate your human at the helm posture and your reasonably foreseeable misuse risk management system. Tehama is a turnkey solution to deliver all of those because of our genealogy as a privileged access management tool. You also may hear some customers wanting to protect their IP ownership, and they're not using AI to build software or to invent products because they're concerned about the patentability of those products. This is a legitimate concern, but gathering an audit trail of the human interaction with the AI is the key. So what is currently being limited in terms of AI product development in terms of trademark and copyright and patentability of those inventions is only inventions that are done entirely by an AI, where you prompt it and you put it to work for months and it patents 10,000 things. Obviously, that is not how we want our society to work. But gathering the evidence trail with Tehama becomes a turnkey, very easy thing to do. Developing your own AI models, especially if they will be adopted in high-risk situations, requires us to counter a large threat inventory database that includes state actors trying to contaminate our weights through cybersecurity penetration. Establishing a good governance and good security and compliance posture for the development of those models means having a very clear inventory of all the data that's been available to train the model and a very clear audit trail of the processes that were used to train the model. Because this would be necessary to permit the root cause analysis in the event the model misbehaves, and the ability to demonstrate that your data provenance is all adequate and appropriate. So these are all use cases that we can deliver through these are emerging properties of the data enclave in the cloud, right? So the ability to say only the people with only the data and only the systems that I permit, while keeping all of those receipts and having an audit trail of what happens in the data enclave in the cloud is the key to that. Now, there are other tools in this landscape. I just wanted to be clear, some of the most important ones are in this category in the bottom, and they build the binder of controls and evidence set for the controls that show that you're in compliance with your AI governance. We don't do that. We do help in the cybersecurity posture, the privilege access and human at the helm posture, and the data governance posture. Quick announcement. So you'll be seeing this news today on our socials. Our partnership with Microsoft is now live. This is incredibly valuable partnership for us. Microsoft has made a meaningful investment in us in order to permit us to support Azure virtual desktops as part of a Tehama deployment. Cloud providers do not believe that cloud AI is going to be the entire solution. They believe that a lot of it is going to be slow moving and that the compliance concerns around cloud AI are going to limit adoption. We have a way to accelerate that. There's current state of play has security concerns and regulated data being very slow to adopt cloud AI, and we have an ability to make their entire dashboard green together in partnership. Nick can help you, excuse me, collaborate with Microsoft and us in order to achieve these dynamics. And I have some bonus slides here because each of you is going to be getting a copy of this slide deck in it. I'm just going to quickly show them to you. We talk about the European AI Act, what it covers, and the key rules. Here's the key points. Risk management systems, human oversight, cybersecurity and robustness, data and data governance, and evidence gathering are all important functions that are directly supported by Tehama. Transparency means if you're a robot, you have to say you're a robot. We don't help with that. And we don't help with the binder development. But the actual brass tacks cybersecurity posture for AI adoption, we're right in the middle of the wheelhouse for that. There's some links here. There's other use cases here. There's blah, blah, blah. You can have a look at those. It'll be in your deck as well. But the key point I wanted to share with you is this AI governance opportunity. So with that, I'll take questions if there are any.
Just unmute yourself if you have any questions.